activities that have absolutely nothing to do with this regulation, and that these are the things that the board is looking at as a whole. 2 points that county staff felt it was important to make. First of all, this ordinance, some of the language in this ordinance is required by TDEC, regardless of whether the board makes a recommendation on it or not. It's required whether there's a stormwater advisory board or not. If the county doesn't put $1 more or one more man to stormwater management, the language, some of the language in this ordinance is still required by the state for NPDES Phase 2 compliance. But understand that some of the issues that we know are out there, specifically the resources the county is putting toward stormwater and putting toward things like enforcement, have become very key issues that are being discussed by the board. And so the recommendations that potentially will be put forward to the mayor hopefully will address some of these concerns that folks have. Can you go back to? So again, the work doesn't end here. There are a lot of challenges. They're growing in complexity as the county grows and grows economically and develops economically. There's going to be a greater need for stormwater. Think about this in the same way you think about the need for better roads as a place grows, or better sewer coverage, or better water coverage. The regulations for water quality will get tighter. We are seeing that slowly happen across the nation, so we expect that to happen here. We know that county resources are limited. Water quality is now a driver for the county program. That's not going to go away. And there are community expectations that are being voiced that need to be addressed. Keep going. Scroll through. So finally, in closing here, the upcoming events that you need to be aware of: there will be 4 more public meetings on the stormwater ordinance. There will be a public meeting given by Tetra Tech on the urban growth agreement. That's on April 12th. The county staff are going to receive comments in these meetings. If we can quickly make changes or there are no significant changes, the county staff anticipates that County Commission will be looking again at potentially adopting the ordinance, or at least first reading of the ordinance in May. And then after adoption of the ordinance, county has planned for some technical training, some workshops for developers and engineers on the requirements that are in place. So that is all that I have. Again, we welcome your questions. There's a group of us that are going to be fielding questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Does any commissioner have any questions up to this point? Commissioner Marquardt.
Thank you. I have some questions regarding comparisons to the existing.
Wait, hang on just a second.
Commissioner Harmon, if I could interrupt for just a moment for a couple of housekeeping matters. I apologize. I overlooked them earlier. Just in order to try to make sure everybody has a chance to speak in some kind of fair and systematic way, if you would like to ask a question, if you'll raise your hand, Grant Rosenberg will find you and get you signed up, and then we'll take you in the order in which you're signed up, and that way we won't get a mass rush to the front when we open the floor to questions. So if you would raise your hands. Also, I did neglect to mention, Commissioner, we actually had 18 in attendance since we started, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. I wanted to extend regrets on behalf of Commissioner Trammell and Commissioner Bolos, who were called away on a work-related emergency. It is absolutely unavoidable, but they were both in attendance as well. And I neglected also to recognize Councilman Bob Becker, who's joined us. We appreciate him being with us tonight, and Mark Donaldson from MPC. And with that, we'll turn the floor over to questions of the Commission.
Thank you, Dwight. Commissioner?
Thank you. Questions regarding comparisons between the city and the proposed county stormwater. As I understand the proposed county, specifically Section 4.1.2, that it exempts from a grading permit those who do not alter the natural ground by more than 5 feet. But when I look at the city ordinance, it's 4 feet, Section 22, Section 27. When I look at the county ordinance, Section 5.3.3, that the finished floor elevation is just 1 foot above the flood protection elevation, whereas I read in the city ordinance, C2, that references 2-foot contours. When I look at the city ordinance, it requires a sediment control plan for any residence disturbing an area of more than 10,000 feet. And I believe, I'm not sure what yours is, but it appears to be an acre. And finally, I look at the penalty section, and I compliment you for taking word for word the city's penalty section, but leaving out a crucial last one, which says that the remedies are cumulative and not exclusive. So I'm wondering why there are those gaps between the city and the county ordinance, gaps that easily could be remedied and make a stronger ordinance for the county.
Commissioner, I think probably what we need to do is take those back, and because that was part of the task of Tetra Tech's comparison of the two ordinances, and what we've represented to you here was their findings. They evidently thought that the one
Draft findings.
Yes, sir, that's correct, and
Okay.
and they're going to do a presentation on April the 12th. Because my understanding, they didn't bring any of that to our attention. For instance, the 1 foot, the 4 foot versus the 5 foot, and that sort of thing. But
I just compared them over the weekend.
right, we'll certainly follow up and get you some answers on that.
Okay. Are you done with your question?
I may have some later, but let me pass on.
Okay. Commissioner Hammond.
Just a couple of questions, and I'm one of those that Commissioner Norman mentioned earlier that your eyes glaze over when you start talking about stormwater. I'm one of those. But just a couple of quick questions. The use of concrete pipe. I'm hearing that there's some, not controversy, but disagreement over that. Could you kind of explain to me the differences in the use of the concrete versus other materials?
Yes, sir, I can. Essentially, the city of Knoxville requires concrete pipes, and I'm paraphrasing here. I don't want to. Is in almost most applications, for instance, subdivision streets, that sort of thing. The county only requires concrete pipe when you're dealing with roads of a collector arterial status, is because the situation that, as I explained previously with the city of Knoxville, is although concrete pipe certainly is a better material and so forth, it is much more expensive. My position and my staff's position was that we weren't going to come to commission and request that the ordinance that you essentially adopt a freestanding ordinance that mandates concrete pipe unless I really have some case studies where I've been having a problem with other installations. For instance, high-density polyethylene pipe, plastic pipe, is an installation that should be allowed and would last as long as concrete. However, to settle this whole argument, the county is more than willing to adopt exactly what the city of Knoxville currently uses in cases of installation of concrete pipe. So essentially, that will no longer be an issue. It will be the same. We will adopt exactly what the city has and put that issue to rest.
And secondly, I'm hearing estimates that to implement this, I believe it's this ordinance, is going to cost anywhere from $50 to $60 to $70 million. Is that correct?
That is not correct. I'm not sure where you're getting those numbers from. The only thing I can think of is the Stormwater Advisory Panel was given numbers in regards to the county's complete stormwater program. What I mean by a complete stormwater program, we're talking about, not only are we talking about the ordinance itself, but more importantly, capital projects. For instance, if I'm going to have to go in and do an upgrade to a subdivision that was built back in the 60s and 70s when there was no storm sewers and things like that, all those numbers were included in there. That also includes my maintenance activities, for cleaning ditches, cleaning catch basins, the staff that's required to do all those things. So those numbers include a much broader area. Also, some of the numbers that were included in that, quite frankly, we weren't aware of the exact number that we are spending on stormwater, and the reason for that is I've got several different divisions within engineering and public works. There's no set line item that says stormwater, this is what you're paying for. For instance, I spend part of my day dealing with stormwater issues, as well does my building inspection department. So we're trying to pull out all those numbers there to come up with what the county really is spending on an annual basis for stormwater and what we need to be looking for towards the future. For instance, upgrades in subdivision capital projects, which are hugely expensive. But all that numbers were included in the numbers that you were given.
Do you believe this cost will go down?
No, I don't think the cost will go down. I can't tell you the cost of the ordinance itself. The only numbers we've looked at is a total stormwater program. And even that stormwater program that we're talking about is something myself and my staff came up with, saying, listen, if we had the money, we would like to do this, 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 and this. And those were the numbers that have been released to you all. And it really hasn't been discussed in the detail it needs to be. And I would set those numbers aside. What I can say is that we have to adopt an ordinance. we've got minimum standards we have to meet, and otherwise we will. I can probably tell you what